The Kensington estate stood as a monument to wealth and power, a sprawling mansion of glass and steel nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley. Its halls echoed with the footsteps of billionaires, innovators, and the occasional hushed whispers of those who served them. Among them was Maria Johnson, a woman of quiet strength, whose calloused hands told stories of labor, sacrifice, and an unyielding determination to provide for her daughter. Maria had worked as a housekeeper for Daniel Kensington, the ruthless yet brilliant CEO of Kensington Tech, for nearly a decade. She moved through the mansion like a ghost, unseen, unheard, yet always present. Her employers barely acknowledged her, treating her as just another fixture in their world of luxury. But Maria never complained. She had learned long ago that in places like this, invisibility was a survival tactic. Her daughter, Lila, was different. At 12 years old, Lila possessed a mind that worked in ways even the most elite engineers couldn't comprehend. While other children played games or watched cartoons, Lila buried herself in advanced mathematics, physics, and coding textbooks she borrowed from the library. Her notebooks were filled with equations, algorithms, and sketches of inventions that would make most professors pause. But the world didn't know that, because Lila was just the maid's daughter. And in the eyes of the elite, that meant she was nothing. The sun had long set over the Kensington estate when the storm arrived, not from the skies, but from the boardroom. Daniel Kensington, a man known for his unshakable composure, was pacing his home office like a caged animal. His usually sharp, ice-blue eyes were shadowed with frustration. Around him, his top executives, men and women in tailored suits with Ivy League pedigrees, sat in tense silence. A $1 billion deal was on the verge of collapse. Kensington Tech's newest artificial intelligence, a revolutionary encryption system designed for global banks, had a flaw. A critical, undetectable flaw that had slipped past their best engineers. Every test run ended in failure. Every attempted fix only made it worse. The client, a consortium of international investors, had given them an ultimatum: solve it by dawn, or the contract would be handed to their competitors. Daniel clenched his fists. Failure was not an option. Outside the office, unnoticed by the suits and the security, sat Lila. Her small frame was curled in an armchair, a thick textbook on quantum cryptography balanced on her knees. She wasn't supposed to be here. But Maria had been called in last minute to serve refreshments, and Lila had nowhere else to go. The voices from the office spilled into the hallway. We've tried everything. Snapped the lead engineer, a man with a PhD from MIT. The algorithm is fundamentally unstable. Then find a way to stabilize it. Daniel's voice was a blade. Lila's ears perked up. She had overheard enough to understand the problem. And in her mind, something clicked. A solution. Simple. Elegant. Before she could second-guess herself, she stood, smoothed her worn sweater, and walked toward the office door. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the child standing in the doorway. Maria's breath caught in her throat. "Lila," she whispered, horrified. The executives exchanged glances. Some smirked. Others scowled. Who let the helps kid wander in here? But Daniel Kensington, for reasons even he didn't yet understand, held up a hand. Yes? He asked, his voice unreadable. Lila swallowed hard but didn't back down. I think I can fix it. A beat of stunned silence. Then laughter. The lead engineer snorted. Kid, this isn't a math puzzle. This is $1 billion, Give her the marker, Daniel interrupted. The laughter died. No one moved. Now. A junior analyst hesitantly handed Lila a dry erase marker. The room watched as the 12-year-old girl, the maid's daughter, stepped up to the whiteboard covered in complex algorithms. And in under a minute, she rewrote the equation. The lead engineer's smirk faded. His eyes widened. He leaned forward, scanning her work. Then, slowly, he turned to Daniel. She fixed it. Daniel's pulse spiked. Run the test. A junior developer typed furiously. The screen flashed. Success. The $1 billion problem had been solved. By a child. By the maid's daughter. Silence. Then, ***. Daniel Kensington did something no one expected. He knelt down to Lila's eye level. What's your name? Lila Johnson, sir. He really studied her for the first time. And in that moment, he saw not a servant's child, but a mind unlike any he had ever encountered. A mind that could change the world. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every executive, engineer, and analyst stood frozen, their eyes darting between the whiteboard, the CEO, and the small girl who had just done the impossible. The hum of the servers in the adjacent tech lab was the only sound, a constant reminder of the empire that had just been saved by the most unexpected mind in the building. Daniel Kensington had built his career on recognizing brilliance. He had spotted talent in university dropouts, in overlooked coders, in relentless visionaries others dismissed as dreamers. But this was different. This was a child. A black child. The daughter of his housekeeper. And yet, in 60 seconds, she had dismantled a problem that had crippled his best minds for weeks. He straightened, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor as he took a single step toward Lila. The room held its breath. "You just saved this company $1 billion, he said, his voice low, measured. Lila didn't flinch. She had spent her life being overlooked, being told to stay quiet, to not take up space. But in this moment, she stood tall, her fingers still smudged with dry erase ink. "It wasn't that hard," she said. "The algorithm was overcomplicating the encryption. It needed a simpler key structure." A murmur rippled through the room. The lead engineer, a man with 2 decades of experience, ran a hand over his face. "She's right. We were so focused on layering security that we bottlenecked the system." Daniel didn't take his eyes off Lila. "How did you know?" She shrugged. "I read about similar patterns in a cryptography journal last month. The solution just made sense." A journal. Last month. The executives exchanged glances. This girl wasn't just smart. She was Prodigy level. Maria, standing near the doorway, clutched her cleaning cart like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She had always known Lila was special. Her teachers had said so. The librarians had said so. But this was dangerous. People like them weren't supposed to be seen like this. Daniel turned to his CFO. "Clear the room." Within seconds, the office emptied, leaving only Daniel, Lila, and Maria. The weight of the moment settled over them. Daniel exhaled, then did something he had never done in his life. He sat on the edge of his desk, bringing himself down to Lila's eye level. "Lila, what do you want to be when you grow up?" She didn't hesitate. "A scientist. I want to build things. Fix things." He nodded slowly. Then he looked at Maria. "Your daughter is exceptional." Maria's throat tightened. She had heard those words before, but never from a man like this. Never with this kind of weight behind them. "She is," she whispered. Daniel stood, his decision made. "Then let's make sure the world doesn't waste her." He walked to his desk, pulled out a checkbook, and wrote a figure that made Maria's knees weak. But then he tore it up. Money wasn't what this was about. "Lila," he said, "I'm going to enroll you in the best STEM school in the country. Private tutors. Summer programs at MIT. Whatever you need. And when you're ready, there will always be a place for you here." Maria's hands flew to her mouth. This wasn't charity. This wasn't pity. This was an investment. A recognition. Lila's eyes gleamed. "Really?" Daniel almost smiled. "Really." And just like that, the trajectory of Lila Johnson's life changed forever. But outside the office, the whispers had already begun. Because in a world built on hierarchies, some people would do anything to keep a maid's daughter in her place. The news spread through Kensington Tech like wildfire. By morning, every employee knew. The billion-dollar crisis had been averted not by the senior engineers, not by the elite coding team flown in from Zurich, but by a 12-year-old girl. The maid's daughter. The child no one had noticed quietly doing homework in the corner of executive meetings. Daniel Kensington's decision to fund Lila's education should have been celebrated. It should have been a heartwarming story of potential recognized, of barriers broken. Instead, it became a quiet controversy. In the glass-walled offices of Kensington Tech's upper floors, executives murmured behind closed doors. "He's lost his mind. A charity case? Now, that girl doesn't belong here." The words were never said where Daniel could hear them, but they lingered in the break rooms, in the elevator rides, in the glances exchanged when Maria walked by with her cleaning cart. Meanwhile, Lila's world transformed overnight. 1 week after solving the encryption flaw, she sat in the office of Dr. Eleanor Hartfield, headmistress of the prestigious Stanford Academy for Mathematics and Science. The walls were lined with portraits of Nobel laureates, inventors, pioneers. The air smelled of old books and ambition. Dr. Hartfield adjusted her glasses, studying the test results in front of her. Then she looked at Lila. "Do you understand what these scores mean?" Lila shifted in her chair. The exam had been hard, but not impossible. "I think so. These are postgraduate level results." Dr. Hartfield's voice was steady, but her fingers tapped the desk. "From a child who hasn't even entered high school." Across the room, Maria sat stiffly, her hands clenched in her lap. She had spent years shielding Lila from the world's harshness. Now, that world was opening doors Maria hadn't even known existed. "We'll enroll her immediately," Dr. Hartfield said. "Full scholarship, of course. But you should understand this will not be easy for her." Maria knew what she meant. Not the coursework, the stares, the whispers, the weight of being the only one in the room who looked like her. But Lila only nodded. "I want to learn." And so it began. Morning started before dawn. While Maria prepared the Kensington estate for the day, a private car arrived to take Lila to the academy. Her old clothes were replaced with a crisp uniform. Her tattered notebooks were exchanged for sleek tablets loaded with advanced coursework. At first, the other students ignored her. Then they watched her. Then they resented her. "She's cheating," a boy muttered after Lila solved a complex physics problem in seconds. "Daddy must have paid her way in," a girl whispered in the library. The teachers were no better. Some doubted her abilities. Others tested her relentlessly, waiting for her to fail. But Lila didn't fail. She thrived. Back at Kensington Tech, the resistance grew stronger. At the quarterly board meeting, CFO Robert Vance slid a report across the table to Daniel. "The numbers don't lie. Morale is down. Key engineers feel undermined." Daniel didn't glance at the paper. "Because a child outthought them? Because you're prioritizing some pet project over. That pet project saved this company." Daniel's voice cut through the room. "Or have you forgotten?" The room fell silent, but the tension remained. Meanwhile, in the shadows, another plan was forming. One evening, as Maria polished the grand staircase, she overheard two executives speaking in hushed tones near the study. "Background check turned up nothing, but there has to be something. Keep digging." No kid is that smart without. They noticed Maria and fell silent. But the damage was done. That night, for the first time, Maria cried. Not tears of joy, but of fear. She had spent her life believing that if you worked hard, kept your head down, and played by the rules, you would be safe. Now she understood the truth. The higher Lila rose, the harder they would try to pull her down. 15 years later, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. The stage lights cast a warm glow over rows of seated dignitaries, scientists, and journalists from every major publication. At the podium, the president of the National Academy of Sciences adjusted his glasses as he prepared to make the historic announcement. Backstage, a woman in a tailored navy suit stood perfectly still, her fingers tracing the edge of the Nobel medal she would soon receive. Dr. Lila Johnson had long since stopped being the Maid's daughter. Now they called her the Einstein of quantum encryption, the prodigy who changed the digital world, the woman who made hackers obsolete. The journey here had been anything but smooth. After graduating from Stanford Academy at 16, Lila had entered MIT on full scholarship. By 19, She'd published 3 groundbreaking papers on quantum computing. By 22, she'd revolutionized Kensington tech security systems, making them impenetrable. Daniel Kensington, now retired, watched from the front row with tears in his eyes as the woman he'd gambled on prepared to make history. But this moment wasn't just about science. In the third row, Maria Johnson sat clutching a worn handkerchief. The same hands that had scrubbed floors and polished silver now wore gloves tailored for the occasion. When the cameras panned to her, no one saw a former maid. They saw the mother of genius. The president began speaking. Today we honor not just revolutionary science, but revolutionary perseverance. Dr. Johnson's work will protect global data systems for generations to come. As Lila stepped forward to accept the award, the audience saw more than a brilliant mind. They saw living proof that potential exists in places society rarely thinks to look. The Johnson encryption protocol, now used by governments worldwide, had begun as scribbles in a child's notebook while her mother cleaned offices. Back at Kensington Tech, new interns still heard the story on their first day. They toured the Lila Johnson research wing, walked past the portrait of the 12-year-old girl holding a marker before a whiteboard. The company had instituted policies ensuring no talent would ever be overlooked again: scholarships for custodial staff's children, merit-based hiring blind to surnames and pedigrees. That night, after the ceremonies ended, Lila and Maria returned to their penthouse overlooking the city Maria once cleaned. They sat at a kitchen table far grander than the one in their old apartment, yet somehow just the same. "You did good, Mija," Maria whispered in the dark. Lila squeezed her mother's hands, still rough from years of labor. "We did good." Outside, the city lights glittered like the stars Lila used to chart from their tiny apartment window. The same stars that had seemed so far away to a girl who dared to solve billion-dollar problems between her mother's cleaning shifts. Somewhere in the city tonight, another child sat solving equations no one knew they could comprehend. Another parent worked multiple jobs to nurture talent the world wasn't ready to see. The cycle continued. But because of Lila, the world was learning to look harder. The morning after the Nobel announcement, the world woke up to headlines celebrating Lila Johnson's unprecedented achievement. News anchors marveled at her journey from a maid's daughter to a scientific pioneer. Social media overflowed with admiration, her face plastered across timelines as the ultimate underdog success story. But beneath the celebratory veneer, darker currents stirred. In the boardrooms of rival tech giants, executives pored over Lila's research, scrambling to understand how a woman so young had outmaneuvered their best minds. At the prestigious Hamilton Institute, a think tank known for its skepticism toward overnight geniuses, senior researchers whispered behind closed doors. "No one develops quantum encryption protocols without institutional backing," argued Dr. Gregory Phelps, his fingers drumming against a thick dossier labeled Johnson, Lila case study. "There has to be more to this." His colleague, a data analyst with a permanent frown, slid a report across the table. Background checks show nothing unusual. Standard public schooling until Kensington intervened. But look at her publication timeline, it's statistically improbable. Across the city, in a dimly lit studio, popular tech podcaster Ryan Cole adjusted his microphone before recording his latest episode. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, folks. How does a 12-year-old with no formal training crack a billion-dollar encryption problem? Either we're witnessing the greatest mind since Einstein, or there's a PR machine working overtime. The skepticism wasn't confined to private conversations. Online forums lit up with conspiracy theories. Some claimed Lila had stolen her research from Kensington's engineers. Others insisted her Nobel Prize was a diversity stunt, a hollow gesture by an industry desperate for good press. Meanwhile, Lila sat in her penthouse office, scrolling through the comments with detached curiosity. She had expected resistance, just not this much, this fast. Maria entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She took one look at her daughter's screen and sighed. "You shouldn't read that nonsense." Lila closed the tab. "It's not entirely nonsense. Some of them are raising valid questions about the speed of my progress." "Valid?" Maria's voice sharpened. "They're looking for excuses because the truth makes them uncomfortable." A knock at the door interrupted them. Daniel Kensington stood in the hallway, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk." Kensington tech stock had soared after Lila's Nobel win, but not everyone was celebrating. In the headquarters of rival firm Nexus Systems, CEO Arthur Bruckner stared at a live feed of Lila's press conference. "This is unacceptable," he muttered. Nexus had spent billions on quantum research, only to be eclipsed by a woman their algorithms had labeled a low-probability outlier. He turned to his legal team. "I want every patent she's filed reviewed for prior art. If there's even a hint of borrowed code, I want it exposed." His chief counsel hesitated. "Sir, our initial scans show no overlap. Her work is original." Bruckner's jaw tightened. "Then dig deeper." 3 days later, an anonymous post appeared on The Verge, a popular tech news site. The article, titled "The Untold Story of Lila Johnson," claimed to reveal shocking inconsistencies in her academic records. It cited unnamed sources who questioned the legitimacy of her MIT admissions and hinted at undisclosed favors from Daniel Kensington. The piece stopped short of outright accusations, but dripped with insinuation. By noon, it had gone viral. Lila's phone buzzed incessantly, reporters demanding comment, colleagues expressing concern, friends offering support. She silenced it and turned to her computer. With a few keystrokes, she pulled up the encryption logs from her old MIT projects. If they wanted proof, she'd give it to them. The room was packed. Cameras flashed as Lila stepped onto the stage, flanked by her research team and a visibly furious Daniel Kensington. She placed a single USB drive on a podium. "I understand there are questions," she began, her voice steady. "So today I'm releasing every draft, every failed experiment, every line of code that led to my discoveries. No edits, no omissions." A murmur spread through the crowd. No scientist had ever done this, laid bare their entire process for public scrutiny. A reporter stood. "Dr. Johnson, are you saying you have nothing to hide?" Lila smiled. "I'm saying the truth doesn't need hiding." Within hours, independent experts verified her work. The logs showed years of trial and error, dead ends, and incremental breakthroughs, exactly what real science looked like. The conspiracy theories crumbled, but the damage lingered. In the weeks that followed, Lila noticed subtle shifts. Invitations to keynote conferences were quietly rescinded. Collaborators grew distant, fearing association with controversy. Even her alma mater hesitated to feature her in alumni promotions. Maria watched it all with quiet fury. "They'll never make it easy for you." Lila nodded. "I know." One evening, as Lila reviewed another batch of hate mail, an encrypted message appeared on her screen. "We see what you're up against. We're facing the same. Meet us." Attached were coordinates for an underground research collective, a network of marginalized scientists working outside traditional institutions. Lila leaned back in her chair, a slow smile forming. Maybe the backlash wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. The end.